because we covered the foreign fighters bill pretty extensively. So that from the Greens, Angus Taylor. How confident are you that this will be validated? Both Labor and the Greens now very firmly saying no go.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, Labor used this power for the Alco-Pops tax, and so it's not a new idea to use this power.
And in the end, the coalition at the time rolled over?
So it's not a new idea to use this power in this way. The really important thing, though, that Christine Milne misses is, one, we know that the Greens actually favour higher fuel prices. They want taxes to make sure we have higher fuel prices. So what she's really saying is she doesn't want more investment in roads, because the critical thing here is that that money will go into road investment. It's hypothecated. It will go direct into road investment. And she's effectively saying we don't like roads, so we don't want more road investment. And the Australian people need to come to their own view about whether that's acceptable.
How is Labor in 12 months' time going to be able to explain to the Australian people that they are voting to give money collected back to fuel companies that was going to be spent on roads? That's pretty hard to justify, isn't it?
What we've been doing is we've been upfront with the Australian people and said we're not going to support Tony Abbott's increase in taxes. We're not going to support a tax that is regressive, that attacks ordinary motorists who need to use their car to get to work. And we're staying solid to that fundamental policy line, and we're not going to let them get away with another broken promise. Mr Abbott, before the election, said no new or increased taxes, and we all continue to fight this because it's an unfair attack on Australian motorists.
And I suppose the question to the coalition is, how is it that you're claiming this is not a new tax? I mean, Matthias Cormann said, he tweeted, in fact, I did not announce a new tax. I announced a revised implementation arrangement for a budget measure. Is he joking there? Is that tongue-in-cheek?
Look, we could spend the next 10 minutes on the definition of tax and semantics, but look, let's go back to the fund.
But you know, this is the semantics. No, I know, I'm sorry to interrupt, and I'll let you go on, but the semantics is the reason that Labor is blocking this. It's also the reason that you went so hard against the carbon tax.
I think we'll bore your viewers to death if we do that. The critical point here, though, is that we made two fundamental commitments at the last election. One is to get the budget back into surplus, and the second is to build the infrastructure of the 21st century. Now, this indexation of the fuel excise simply ensures that the fuel excise increases with the rate of inflation, no more than that. So in real terms, it will stay exactly the same in real terms. And it is there, it will be put direct into road funding. Direct into road funding, and we know how important that is, not just to people who use the roads, but to the economy. Because as mining investment falls away, let me finish this. As mining investment falls away, we need investment in roads. This is absolutely central.
And Angus can rewrite history all he wants. Before the election, Tony Abbott made a fundamental promise. Yeah,
you have made that point. What is interesting, though, in what the coalition is pointing out, though, is that this is not really an increase in real terms, because it's just going up with inflation. All it's actually doing is ensuring that the tax revenue collected does not decrease over time in real terms. That's right, isn't it?
Well, it's still an increased tax. Increasing the excise means that the government is collecting more revenue from low and middle income Australians who use the roads, who drive and use petrol. Like, you can talk about semantics. We didn't get this fine semantics when we talked about the carbon tax, for example, or any other debate in the last parliament. This is an increased tax. It attacks working people, and we're going to oppose it for that reason.
But Pat, look, there is no increase in real terms, and let me tell you, the Australian people understand that a carbon tax was a massive increase in real terms, and we have seen the biggest reduction in electricity prices in real terms
ever. A quick response, and I just want to move on.
Well, you've got to ask the question, how are you going to combat climate change? There is no cost-free solution, and direct action will cost $100 billion.
Don't want to get onto
the Grand Institute.
Climate change too deeply today. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to ask about Nova Peris. This is a pretty sensitive issue. Her private details have been splashed right across the nation. But is there a question there about misuse of the public purse, Pat?
Well, I think the key thing here is if you've got an allegation like that, you don't run a story like the NT News did. That was incredibly salacious. It was the worst form of journalism. I think it's an insult to journalism to call it journalism. You could have run a story like that with all those personal emails that were, quite frankly, incredibly poor. And I just think that that's the real issue. Athletics Australia...
Their justification, though, for running such a story is that allegation of misuse of the public
we've got to be
purse.
very careful about going to allegations.
Should Nova Peris explain this further?
Well, this is a matter that occurred before she came to Parliament. I'd make the point that Athletics Australia made it very clear today that they were very happy with the value for money they got from Mr Bolden coming to this country. I just think this represents the worst form of journalism, and if people are serious about a mature debate, there's a responsibility on journalists as well as politicians to engage in that.
Angus, what's the Coalition's view of this story? Should Nova Peris apologise or explain further what happened?
Look, I'm not going to comment on unproven allegations because that's what they are at the moment. What I will say is parliamentary entitlements are a hugely important issue. There's legislation before the House, which I spoke on yesterday. Out in the electorate, there is great cynicism about politicians and how they use their entitlements, and it's incumbent on all of us to use those entitlements responsibly, and the legislation before the House is intended to make sure that we do exactly that.
A good point to end our discussion. Pat Conroy, Angus Taylor, thank you.